Hello, my name is Lamborghini, and today I will be bringing you a Grandmaster's guide to our favorite hero, Ana. Now, a little bit about me. I'm a 4.2k peak support player who abuses the shit out of whatever hero is meta, and it's safe to say that Ana is very meta right now, especially now that a certain someone has gotten buffed.
I need healing.
Now, I consider Ana the hardest support to play, if not the hardest hero to play, and hopefully after this guide, you'll learn how to abuse her kit to carry games and identify your own mistakes. Now, I've divided this guide into different sections, which you should see on screen, and hopefully I remember to add the description with timestamps. That being said, let's get started. Our first topic will be mechanics and aim training. Obviously, if you don't hit your shots, you're not going to get much value out of her. Honestly, your aim will only come with time, and the best way to improve it is to practice and practice. Now, I suggest playing Deathmatch to get good at 1v1 matchups, and I'd say if you can consistently get top 4 in that mode, your aiming is good enough to be Grandmasters. I'd also suggest if you want to get good at quickscoping, you play Ana Paintball in the custom games. Now, if you don't know what Ana quickscoping is, it's basically a technique used to maintain your hit scan and aim while maintaining movement, but at the expense of fire rate. I can probably make a video about it in the future, but right now I'll link a video guide in the description below. Now, there are some Ana animation cancels you should know, and I'll demonstrate them on screen. Again, the only real way to improve your aim is to play more comp with Ana. Over time, you'll find yourself landing more sleeps, more shots, and be more consistent overall. Now, let's talk about how team compositions affect your playstyle. At the start of each round, I usually like to see what my other support is playing and base my playstyle off of their pick. If we're running an off healer like Lucio, Zen, Mercy, Brig, I would generally play more reserved and focus on healing up my team rather than going full out damage. However, if we have a Moira or Baptiste, for example, I would try to do more damage, use Nade more offensively, Sleep Dart more freely, because otherwise we'd be competing for the same ult charge by healing our teammates, and we want to get more ult charge off the enemy team instead. Next, I'd probably pay attention to the enemy team comp. If the enemy is running dive characters or flanker heroes, I would generally use my abilities more reserved and use them if I'm getting dove or flanked. Otherwise, I'd be looking for off angles against Brawl or Double Shield to land those anti-nades and sleeps. Again, these are general guidelines, and each situation is different, so you'd have to use your best judgment and make the decisions for yourself endgame. Alright, let's talk about probably the most important topic, which is positioning as Ana. Here we'll look at my clips in GM and identify my mistakes and what I do right, and hopefully develop a better understanding of our decision making as Ana. Here in Eichenwald, our Zarya gets picked during the poke phase of the fight, so while we're waiting for her, I'm never peeking the enemy team. I'm always healing in cover. It's not our job as support to poke the enemy team and get a pick. It's our job to heal up chip damage and hopefully build our ult as fast as possible during this phase of the fight. And when the torp gets low here, instead of walking through in front to the right side, I rotate back around and through the door and heal up from that angle, so that way I don't get exposed. So as Ana, you always want to be healing in cover and playing from a safe position where the enemy team can't get you while you can focus on healing your team. Imagine that you're watching Saving Private Ryan and you're storming the beaches of Normandy. You don't want to be that one guy in the background who gets picked off because you peeked the fucking enemy sniper. So yeah, treat Overwatch like a fucking war zone, dude. Here on Volskaya, I'm always playing the back and in cover, never exposing myself to the enemy Widowmaker. If I ever get flanked, I can always grab the Mega Health Pack and rotate around through the side door back into a safe spot where my team can help me. In this clip, I managed to sleep a hog flanking from my right side while I'm still playing the back. I call out that I slept the hog and rotate left side towards the Mega Health Pack, so that way my teammates can help finish off the hog while I play in cover and still heal them up. You always want to find some sort of cover, whether it be the payload or walls. You always need to be safe in order for you to survive, because if you die, your team gets no healing and everyone will stagger themselves to death. For our next topic here, I'm just gonna let the clip play out, and I want you guys to see how we could have won the fight and what mistakes I made throughout it. Here, my mistake was target prioritization. Both the Torb and the Reinhardt was low, but the Torb was in a safer position where he wouldn't die immediately. He could have rotated to the left side, grabbed a mini, and get assistance from the rest of my team. But my Reinhardt was in engagement with the enemy team, and it was my job to keep him up, but instead I tunneled vision onto the Torb, let our Ryan die, and therefore allow the team to turn the fight against us. So in general, the number one rule with target prioritization as a support is to heal whoever is in the most danger. You have to look at who's engaging the enemy and who has the potential to die immediately if you don't heal them up. Also, side note, if you have teammates who are feeding their ass off in the enemy backline and they're out of line of sight and you can't heal them up, it's not really your fault. You can't really do anything about that. You have to prioritize healing up who you can see and who you think can make the biggest impact in the current team fight. Alright, let's talk about when to do damage as Ana. You always see the high level players like ML7, Jonak, DPSing their ass off as Ana and getting so much value just by killing the enemy team. Generally, I'd like to say there's two instances which you want to focus more on damage rather than healing, but of course you always want to keep your team up. One is when there's out of position squishies, so we'll take a look at this clip on Eichenwald where I pick off Farah, who is out of position. And here I know that I don't need to focus on healing up my team because my Lucio just dropped beat and I sort of knew that they wouldn't die immediately, so I turned my attention to killing the Farah, who is completely exposed in the air. The other instance where you want to focus on damaging as Ana is generally when the enemy team is losing the fight. So normally when the enemy team is losing the fight, they want to play more slow, right? They want to get healed up so they can re-engage. But if you deal more damage to them, you'll be applying enough pressure so that they won't have a good opportunity to turn the fight in their favor. So yeah, overall, your job as a support is to enable your team, right? But don't get stuck in the mindset that you're a heal bot and you can only heal your team, because you're not. You're a fucking support sniper rifle person who can just kill enemies with like 3 shots, so just feel free to do that. Alright, let's talk about Ana Nano Usage. Now, I've split it into 4 categories which you can use Nano in, which are turning the team fight, engaging the enemy team, using it defensively, and using it to charge your teammates' ultimates. Now, we'll look at clips for each of the 4 scenarios. Now, if you're losing a team fight, you're like down 2 or 3, it's still possible to win it if you commit ultimates to the fight, but you have to be sure that you're able to win it before committing, right? So here on Volskaya, I nano our Hanzo, who has the potential to get picks on the enemy squishies, and by doing so, I enable him to survive longer and get value and ultimately allow us to retain first point. So yeah, my point is, as a support, your ultimates are so impactful that you shouldn't be afraid to use them even when you're losing. The next instance we're going to look at is when you're engaging the enemy team with Nano. So basically when you're initiating the team fight by using Nano onto your teammates. So here on Volskaya, my Nano to the Ryan is pretty good because they're already at each other's face, right? They're swinging their hammers, and by applying that pressure on the enemy Ryan by nanoing our Ryan, it turns the fight into our favor, and they either have to back out or risk losing their Ryan because our Ryan has the advantage. Now, you never want to nano your teammates too early because otherwise you won't get the full effect of Nano's duration and you won't have as big an advantage. Here we'll take a look at an instance where I nano our Ryan too early. I thought our Lucio had speed, which we can engage with, but by nanoing our Ryan a little bit too early, the enemy team just literally just walks backwards and just basically waits out the effect of our nano. All right, our next clip highlights when you should use nano defensively. Here, we're trying to touch the payload at the last moment before the enemy team caps second point. I nano our Bastion because one of our teammates called out that Pharah had ult, and by nanoing our Bastion, it gives him enough survivability where he can potentially kill Pharah while she's in the middle of her ult duration, which he does, and ultimately wins us the point and wins us the game. Lastly, we'll take a look at how nanoing your teammates helps charge their ultimates. Here in Junkertown, our Genji and I are looking for a Nano Blade, but unfortunately our Genji doesn't have Blade yet. But he was around 70% to his ult, so he asked for the Nano. I Nano him, and by doing so, he can dash through multiple enemies and quickly build his ultimate in like a split second. So yeah, overall, Nano is a very versatile ultimate. You can use it in a lot of scenarios, and you should always be focusing on building your Nano as fast as possible if you feel like there's nothing else to do. Alright, let's talk about On a Sleep Dart, which is probably the most powerful CC in the game. I'd like to see Sleep Dart value in like a spectrum of like high risk, high reward. I'm just gonna draw a graph just to show you guys, Alright, I hope y'all like my MS Paint drawing. I put a lot of work into it. So, yeah, generally you want to be able to categorize your sleep darts into 4 separate categories based on like risk and reward. You always want to find some sort of reward in your sleep darts. You always want to be going for value, right? You can see like examples in each category, like example of low risk, high reward, which is ideally the type of sleep darts you want to go for, are like Sleeping Bob, Sleeping like Hogs McVape, so like your team can follow up on it, or it just gets you like instant value. And then the next type of sleep you want to go for are like the high risk, high reward values, which is like sleeping a Nano Blade, stuff like that. Because even though it's hard to hit, when you do hit it, it gives you so much value to your team that can basically win you the game. And the other 2 categories I just consider like wasting your sleep dart. They're like really not worth just sending your sleep dart out for, so I generally wouldn't go for them. So the overall point I want you guys to like take away from this section is that like mid-game you have to be able to categorize your sleep dart potentials into like these 4 categories, and you should base your sleep dart usage based on your own judgment on where it lies in this spectrum. Alright, let's talk about on a nade usage. Now ideally you'd want to land anti-nades on the enemy team rather than using them solely for healing your team as a crutch, because landing a fat anti-nade just denies them so much. Like the healers can't get value, like their tanks can't push up because they're at risk of dying. It just limits their options so much that this ability alone can just win the fight by itself. Now, this doesn't mean that you shouldn't ever use the nade to heal your team up. If your Ryan is low and you feel like you need some extra burst healing, you can always nade them before landing your shots on your Ryan, therefore it'll heal them up quicker and help them get back in the fight. Good opportunities to land anti-nades are when enemies are grouped up. This can occur when they're pushing through a choke together, from an Orisa pull, or like a Zarya grab, etc, etc. You should also pay attention to when the enemy off tank doesn't have abilities, like Zarya not having bubbles for their Reinhardt or themselves, or whether or not their Diva has defense matrix up. And the best way to land anti-nades are finding an off angle against the enemy, or knowing when the enemy tanks will drop their shields, like when the Ryan is about to swing onto your own Reinhardt. Alright, this last section will just be like general tips about climbing the ladder. My advice to reduce tilt in the middle of your games is to like, don't really give a shit about your teammates. I mean, honestly, you're always gonna have bad teammates on your team, but they have like an equal opportunity to be on the enemy team. There's really nothing you can do about it. So you can only focus on your own gameplay and only improve yourself. That's the climbing mindset. The best way to deal with toxicity is to first not cause it yourself, and if someone else is being toxic, just mute them. So yeah, this is going to be the conclusion of my Ana guide. I hope you guys learned something. I hope you find a way to improve yourselves. And if you have any questions or suggestions, leave them below in the comments. Thanks for watching.